أعمالنا من يهد الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل ولن تجد له وليا مرشدا. ما بعد. Alhamdulillah, we're back to a Friday class after the pause of Ramadan. I want you guys to sit here so I can see you instead of looking this way. Thank you. Well, after we have paused from the month of Ramadan and for Eid, we're back to the class. And I would like to have designate this class of living the spirit of Ramadan in an individual level and a communal level. And there's a few things we're going to say today about this so that we'll be able to have activities, have programs around living the spirit of Ramadan. Number one, the Sahaba radiallahu alayhim, they used to get ready to Ramadan 6 months. 6 months before Ramadan arrives, they prepare themselves emotionally, psychologically, mentally. They talk about Ramadan. And 6 months after Ramadan, the Sahaba, companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, they will be talking about what they learned in Ramadan, what happened to them in Ramadan. Therefore, they keep the memory of Ramadan with them, and then the other 6 getting ready for anticipating the coming of Ramadan. Now, most of the Sahaba, they were converted. You know that? You know that or not? Most of the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet, were converted to Islam. Yeah. Most of them, they were converted. Yeah. If you talk about Muhajirin, the immigrants, or you're talking about the Ansar, people who received them, they were not, few of them, second generation, Abdullah ibn Zubair and others were born into Islam. But majority of them are what? Converts. Now, how can a convert who have not lived his life as Muslim become so excited about Ramadan 6 months before it, and then start talking about it 6 months later? What Ramadan does to them? That you need to ask yourself that question. How can we not have the same thing? There's some people like they want Ramadan to finish quickly and check the box. But what kind of a spirit and an environment Ramadan have created within the Sahaba radiallahu alayhim become a very important event in the year? You anticipate, you're waiting for it, or talking about what you have learned from it. The basic analysis that I have on this is that each one of them, every Ramadan for them, it is a new experience, and the transformation that occurred every year that impact their excitement about what they have accomplished in that 6 in Ramadan and keep talking about it and living the spirit of it, or they're looking forward to it because they feel the sweetness of it. Now, there's certain things in an individual level that we can do, and there's something in communal level. If you ask yourself, if Ramadan marked and great events in our life every year, the spirit of it, the communal aspect of it, we want to ask ourselves, what we have as a regard of a spiritual memory? Do you know that the sin memory? You know that or not? You don't know that people have sin memory. Yeah, what sin memory means. People, for example, they pass by a bar. They used to drink a lot every weekend. It have what? Create what? Flashback. Trigger. It's called sin memory. Have you heard of that? Now we heard of it. There's a spiritual memory. Spiritual memory. Spiritual from a spirit. Spiritual memory. Have you went to Umrah, any one of you? Oh, none of you to Umrah? I have to take care of you. none of you? Inshallah, you're going to go to Umrah. Yeah, we're going to do it, brother. Okay. Who went to Umrah? Okay. Do you have memory, spiritual memory of Hajj or Umrah? There's spiritual memory of Ramadan. Do you have any spiritual memory of Ramadan? A spiritual memory. Do you have any spiritual memory of Ramadan? You know what the spiritual memory is? You heard of that? A spiritual memory? A spiritual memory. ذاكرة روحية. Do you know what that is? Let me tell you the psychology of spirituality. In order to upset a bad memory, you have to create a good memory. There's something called brain. And therefore, Ramadan has a spiritual memory, supposed to be, that should last for a year. Supposed to be. But you can activate that memory by doing things, it reminds me of it. For example, if I want to remember my father all the time, rahimahullah, I will read his favorite surah in my salah. That connect me with him. I have to make sure this phone is on. Therefore, if I recite the surah, it reminds me of my father, rahimahullah. If you want to remember, for example, your childhood, what do? You look at pictures. Therefore, you activate memories. In our life, there's a spiritual memories. You can use things to trigger them so that it will address the sinful memories, the memory of sin, or bad memories. In spiritual therapy is to recreate good moment. Are you following what I'm saying? Yeah. And therefore, my talk today about how to maintain the spirit of Ramadan. What's the best day this last Ramadan for you? Anyone here? Like something you remember, like was like, wow, highlight. Yeah. 27th night. Amazing. For my brother here, for those who are watching us, he said the night of 27th was in Boston and he was engaging the dua, the recitation of the Quran. Really, you're not going to forget that, you're going to remember it. Okay. Now, in order for it to be alive, you have to create a kind of activations of the memory. That could be, if you have recorded, you can listen to it. If it's in the YouTube, you can listen to that night. In the car. Get good spirit. Or you can say, I would like to make once a month tahajjud and pray, try to make that dua and try to remind or put myself in that the mood of 27th. You see what I'm saying? Therefore, when you do that, then you activate the spiritual memory. I have special memories of my father, for example. Not only remembering him as a man, rahimahullah, but there's a spiritual memory that I remember I walked with him for 30 minutes, 25 minutes, from our home to the mosque in the last 10 days. Every day, we did dhikr, my brothers walking, and we did the last 10 days, 3 juzu was the sheikh, a night, 2 khatam. And I remember the night of 27th, 25th, it started dripping like very nice rain, it's not heavy. And my father was so happy, he said, I think this was Laylat al-Qadr. It stuck with me. what happens sometimes, one of the mashayikh, by the way, he made in his dua, said, "Oh Allah, we ask you to forgive us for the sin that we have committed, and we ask you to take any kind of pleasure in our heart, the trace of it, of those sins." How people relapse, because there's a trace of joy, happiness, and so on, kind of satisfaction, maybe pleasure, and then the brain deactivates those. How can you train our brain to create spiritual memory that's positive? And that's what I mean by spirit of Ramadan. How can you do that? If we're going to talk about individual levels, we're going to talk on the communal level, I'm going to ask Brother Rehan Dawar, he has an idea also how to create that spirit, to speak about it. Now, in this individual levels, that I would suggest our relationship with the Quran should be in a way that it is not seasonal. Not seasonal. And therefore look for your favorite surah. You can have favorite surah. It's no problem. And a person says, I'm going to spreading the reflection and contemplation of this surah as long as I can. 5 verses a week, 5 verses, every other day. Whatever a person can do. And then look to the next favorite surah, next favorite surah. It is okay to do that instead of starting from the beginning of the Quran. Why am I bringing this? What my proof of this? A Sahabi, during Rasulullah time, who lead his people in prayer. And every time he recites a surah, he recites Surah Al-Ikhlas with it. Like Surah Al-Ikhlas. But the Sahaba said, listen, why Surah Al-Ikhlas? Please stick to one thing. Like, don't repeat Surah Al-Ikhlas in every surah. They want something new. So they went and told Rasulullah, said, can you tell him to drop, not to recite Surah Al-Ikhlas in every rak'ah? This is the Sahaba, that's Rasulullah. But Rasulullah is amazing, of course. There's no doubt. There's no man walked on the earth more better than Rasulullah. But Rasulullah does not jump to conclusion. He said, let me ask him first why he does it. Instead of like, they complain about you. Like sometimes in the masjid people said, okay, can you tell the Imam not to do this? I said, you need to ask Imam why he's doing it first. But Rasulullah then asked him, said, why you keep reciting Surah Al-Ikhlas in every rak'ah? And the man said, I just love this surah. He said, I love the surah. He said, why you love it? Rasulullah said, he said, because it has the attributes of Allah. I just love it. You remember the Sahaba, most of them were what? What did I say earlier? They were converts. Before they come from shirk to tawheed. Therefore tawheed for them they hold into it. Like everything for them. And therefore this surah for him like essential. He recited. You know what the Rasulullah said to him? Allah loves you because you love this surah. I keep doing what you're doing. Yeah. Like reassuring him. Therefore you can have a favorite surah that he repeated so many times. I know what my father rahmallah favorite surahs. He recited them. When he recited them, he cries all the time. Therefore you can't do that. The other aspect of this, I suggested in Ramadan to have a dua buddy. Dua buddy. What do I mean by that? You match yourself with somebody to say, can we make a deal for the coming month? Make dua for me, make dua for you. You enjoy the dua in Ramadan, don't you? The qunut. But you know the more powerful things? If you know you're making a dua specifically for a person, because that's a collective dua, specifically for a person, and that person make dua for you, it creates kind of spiritual connections between you and that person. But it is amazing, I call it spiritual socialization. Have we heard of that? It's today, another term. Spiritual socialization. You socialize to better the spiritual connection. And when you make that, every time you think about that person, you think about you, think positively. One of the things that I have in my life, there's some people you associate them with good things all the time. People who want Hajj with, for example, want Umrah with. You think about them, you think about the Kaaba, you think about them, you think about Medina, you know what I mean? There's a social aspect of it that said, من الناس ومن الناس من نظرت إليه ذكرك بالله. There's some people, when you look at them, you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not because they have any divinity on them, because they connect you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like Imam Malik said, when his heart is not softened, he goes and visit Muhammad ibn al-Munkadir. Rahimahullah, Imam Muhammad ibn al-Munkadir. He said, فَيَرَقُّ قَلْبِي أَيَّامًا. He said, my heart becomes softened for days to come. But just looking at him. They said, why? He said, مَا ذُكْرِ بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا بَكَى. He said, he mentioned Allah's names, and he teared up. Or Rasulullah he teared up. There's something about him that you associate him with good. Therefore, soften my heart being his presence. In Ramadan, we have felt that. We felt this feeling. You walk in the masjid, most of the time, because some people maybe had a difficult experience maybe, but sometimes, most of the time, you walk in the masjid, and you line up in prayer, especially if you pray in the same prayer place every day, you have associated yourself with the space and people around you. For example, when I go to Medina and give salam to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I try to remember the faces of the people who did the salam with me. I don't know who they are, but to remember them. How they reacted when they saw Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For me, it helped me spiritually. That this love of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is shared, is universal love. Therefore, you need to create the spirit of Ramadan by having a dua buddy. That buddy that you make dua, somebody you make dua with. The other spirit of Ramadan is about fasting. I know it's not easy for some people to fast regularly, as Imam Malik said. And by the way, I'm going to give many options of living the spirit of Ramadan. What did I just say to you so far? Yes, and it's a favorite surah of reflections, Quran. Okay? And make dua. Okay? And then we say, tahajjud. Let me give you some tips on tahajjud. In order to be able to pray tahajjud, there's 5 things you have to do. Number 1, don't eat a lot before you go to sleep. If you do that, you're not going to pray tahajjud. Because the energy that's supposed to keep you awake is go to the stomach, the whole night. And your body like down. Yeah. Number 2, make the niyyah before you put your head in the pillow, on the pillow. To say, I'm going to like to pray tahajjud tonight, and I'm going to pray fajr on time. Say that 3 times to yourself. We say that 3 times to ourselves. Trust me, our biological clock will readjust. Because you told the brain, this is the last things you told the brain before you go to sleep. The third, if a person they want to work for tahajjud, they should make sure that the last things they do, go to bed, is not something, yani, you tell yourself that, but before that, you do a ta'ah, an obedience. What do I mean? You read Ayat al-Kursi, al-Ikhlas, al-Nas, and you know that? Or you pray witr and then you go to bed, something like that. Or you pray 2 rak'ahs and you delay the witr later. Fourth is something very easy, which is alarm. With an alarm. I have a friend of mine. The regular alarm does not wake them up. You know what he did? He actually bought an alarm that shake the bed. This is Dario Sandalia. He did that. He shake the whole bed. You put it under the mattress and the bed will move. And then his body biological clock get used to it and then stop doing that. But he shook himself. The fifth is something very important. The night that you woke up, you thank Allah for waking up. There's no ibadah that person can sustain by themselves. Allahumma inni ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husni ibadati. You thank Allah that He made you able to do so. Because ulama said, Imam Ghazali mentioned, if Allah have us awake, that means He inviting us. He opened the door for us. Can I tell you a trick? You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about people who call them al-mustaghfirina bil-ashar. Those who make istighfar in the time of sahar, before fajr. If a person get up for any reason before fajr, for any reason, not even the time for salah, and he said, Astaghfirullah al-azim, Astaghfirullah al-azim, Astaghfirullah al-azim, Astaghfirullah al-azim, 10 times. Went back to bed. Will be written among those who do istighfar in the time of sahar. It's easy, really, a person to seize a moment. Even just waking up at night, want to go to the restrooms. You make that istighfar before you go back to bed. Inshallah, Allah have written among the mustaghfirin. Now, this is an individual level. In communal level, this is my suggestion. And this is Adam's suggestions. I'm going to make the suggestions, somebody else can operationalize it. Because some suggestion that my brother Handa is going to give. Qiyam once a month. Call it maintaining the spirit of Ramadan. Doesn't have to be a long prayer. The second is giving. We choose once a week, once a month, to do a collective of giving together to a particular cause or preparing meals for homeless. I think there's already Adams have social service committee, but we're going to call that activities maintaining the spirit of Ramadan. Therefore, tahajjud, and the third is reflection of Quran. There's operationalizing these ideas that the brother Han has going to suggest, one of the two of them. Reflection of Quran, together as community. We can establish community of tadabbur. You know? We can break it to groups. We can have to tadabbur. And you're going to talk about it. And then fasting. We can do collective fasting together. If we do this, then our community will create, I call it spiritual resilience. Spiritual resilience. This Ramadan, the outcome from Ramadan is 5 things. If we can maintain them the whole year, then it will be amazing. The higher objective is taqwa, to increase God conscious, become God conscious. Allah says, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. The second is to have a person establishing habit, positive habit. And therefore, if we can help humanity and individual level to establish the positive habit, let us do it together. The third, a sense of solidarity. What I mean by that, the spiritual solidarity, the social solidarity. The spiritual solidarity, the collective spirit of encouraging somebody to pray together, to pray qiyam and to fast and so on. That's spiritual solidarity. Social solidarity, for us to be able to serve others. Do you know how many people come to sahur and they came to iftar in Ramadan? You know how many people came? It was 600 people. Am I correct? Huh? 900 people in the weekend, 600 in the weekdays. There's volunteers stood on their feet the entire month of Ramadan serving those people. And they're so excited about it. I tried to help. They said, no, I'm not going to let you help. Share the ajr. I said, did you eat? He said, I'm going to eat later. I have food for me. They really feel that spirit. But there's and then also, part of social solidarity is that we pay zakat al-fitr. Try to make somebody, one of the ta'a, obedience of Allah, is to make another Muslim happy. We're very good making people sad. Make them happy. Put a smile in people's face. إدخال السرور في نفس المؤمن. All of this emoji, online, social media, وما أدراك ما السوشيال ميديا. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من علم لا ينفع. We have to really, a young person come to this masjid for the first time. You can make a big difference. I said, subhanallah, mashallah, we're here. Put a smile to their face. They will never forget. I did not forget. You see my gray hair? By Allah, I remember the ammu, they call them, the uncles, in the masjid, what they used to encourage me. I'm age of 13. I was reading Riyadh al-Salihin to people 3 times my age. I have a halaqa, 13 years old. Masjid al-Hara al-Thamna, Sawra. I was reading Riyadh al-Salihin after Asr. They said, son, you study this, you see you sitting with the sheikh. I said, can you read it for everybody? I started reading Riyadh al-Salihin after Asr, 1 hadith a day. I would read it for them. 13 years old. You never forget those kind of things. There's somebody tapping your shoulder. Somebody said, I'm very happy you are here. It lasts a long time. That's the spirit of Ramadan. Encouragement, helping, uplifting one another. That we need to do that. The other things about Ramadan is connecting to our kinship. How many of you have been in family iftars? Many family iftars, huh? One of the things, the meal that people eat for sure, most of the time, together, if it's not iftar, it's sahur. Am I correct? For people at the regular time, they don't eat together. Many people have stopped this habit of eating a dinner together or a meal together. Because everyone take a plate, one of them upstairs, one in the basement, somebody in the computer, somebody on their phone. You have to create that family environment. The spirit of Ramadan. Create that kinship. Connecting our kinship. The last things I want to say is a connect to the masjid. That the love of the masajid, Buyut Allah. The people fill the masjid in Isha and Taraweeh. we should bring our children around to say, maybe you live far with the masjid. You don't have to come every salah. But say on Sunday, family going to go to the masjid. On Saturday, we're going to go to the masjid. We're going to go to the masjid and stop by and have an ice cream. We're going to stop by the masjid. We're going to do something like that to connect people back to the masjid. Okay? Therefore, those are the things that I want to share with you. I want you to have interactive engagement. Any other suggestions, reflections, want to share? Brother Rehan, want to share now or later? Brother Rehan has an idea of the spirit of Ramadan being discussed with me. And please share.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's nice to see you guys. Jazakallah khair, Magid, for your classes here all the time. Alhamdulillah. Last year, after Ramadan, after I'd come back from my itikaf, I was sitting down with Imam Magid, and I shared with him that every year, during the Ramadan, we see such a beautiful sight where all the community members come in, and there's such a rush of spirituality. Even this year, you see the same thing. There's such a desire and love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Ramadan to observe everything. And all of a sudden, when Ramadan finishes, we see a huge decline. And then after that, we kind of come back up in next Ramadan. And I was listening to a lecture by Omar Suleiman. It's a 13-minute lecture. It's a beautiful lecture. It's titled "Stop Being a Baby." And what he's talking about really is the spirituality side. If you heard it, some of you heard it, right? It's a beautiful one, right? And it made me think about it again this year. So what I had suggested to Imam Magid, or had asked his permission, was okay to do this, and what he thought about it last year was, look, if there's a way we can actually keep people together and bring them in and break fast together every Thursday, as a sunnah, of course, and not just break fast, meet together, break fast, and then after that come up here and do prayers, and then go back down and have food, and have someone who is knowledgeable in the Quran do a summary tafsir on a surah, one surah, where we can reflect on that surah from a perspective of how do we apply that in our life right now as we leave, right? This is how the revelation was made. And when it came, people listened in and applied it right away. And we've sort of fallen into this dogma and therefore having a hard time bridging to the pragmatic side of life, right? And I believe that a lot of problems are happening in our own selves and around the society is because we've lost that understanding of God's centrality and God's, consciousness in every single thing that we do. We in this Western society also, we've gotten caught up too much about image and how we're viewed and what's the power we have, how much money we have, how much wealth we have. And these are the things that are sort of nafsiyah, that's taking us away. But Ramadan all of a sudden changes that. It brings us to this centrality of God's centrality. Our egos are suppressed significantly. Shaitan is no longer making the waswasa. We've become slaves of these external validation things. And so my thinking was simply, and Imam Magid was very gracious in saying, yeah, that makes sound like a good idea. So the idea is this year to start it, where we would it's a whole organized program around it. We also want to integrate the new Muslims. The study shows that those who have come into Islam, subhanAllah, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthen their iman and guide them, that 60% of them actually leave Islam within a year or two after becoming Muslims. And so I've been studying this phenomenon a little bit more and asking and talking to people, and the singular thing that causes them to leave is loneliness. And except those who who marry into a Muslim community, let's just say, so a man becomes a Muslim, marries a Muslim woman exactly from a family, or vice versa, you find that kind of survives, and that's good because they're sort of injected and they've become acclimated within the Muslim community. Where these people, they're leaving their families behind and they are probably getting criticism and they're lonely now. There's some of them, their children maybe even abandoned them or family members, and now imagine how hard that is. To hold on to something brand new and you're trying to learn and you're the other. And I hate to say this, but even in Masjid when you come in, I'm sorry to say this, but and I don't mean to be derogatory towards anyone, but there are people who tend to sort of look at them like, oh, don't do this, or do this, and do this, and do this, and don't do that. And all of a sudden, they're like, what's going on here? We don't treat them as an equal. We don't look at them as somebody who we can actually bring as an equal to us and have conversation with them in a respectful way. And I'm not saying anybody's been disrespectful. I'm simply saying they feel isolated. So I said, well, why, instead of trying to do multiple things, let's just do one thing, which is the spirit of Ramadan on Thursday. And we bring in 50-50. 50% of the audience, hopefully, is... initially, we're capping at 100 starting in the 9th of May. 100 attendees through registration. 50% would be, hopefully, those who are reversed in Islam, and then those who are not. And then after our Maghrib prayer, we'll go downstairs again, or whichever room we're going to do our activity. We would have dinner, and the tafsir will be done. And then we'll break up into groups, different groups, and reflecting as a group of people. So let's say 8 people, 8 pockets of 8 group, whatever. And they reflect together, get to know each other. There'll be rule-based dialogues and discussions around this. And we do this every Thursday. And hoping what that will do is allow us, our spirits, to stop being a baby. Spiritually, we start to grow and evolve ourselves through the reflection and learning, and we can apply. And also become a stronger community with each other as well. Not just those who are revert Muslims, but also within ourselves. Imam Magid knows that I'm always challenging the society's community status quo. I ask that if you think you have friends, can you be really vulnerable with them? And if you can't be vulnerable with them, then they're not your friends. And the greatest way to test your true friends is ask them for money. Okay? So how can we really strengthen our relationship with each other and purify our hearts, right? And if we purify our hearts, our bonds become closer. Because I believe, and Imam Majid heard me say this, is that our hearts are like gold. And you know how when the gold is mined from the different mines, they're brought into a pot and it's heated up. And what happens, the impurities come to the top and the real gold bonds together. So all the impurities that come up, they shave it off. And our hearts are fitra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our hearts are pure. They're very good when we're born. But then it gets infiltrated with diseases of the heart, with envies and all the different worries and so forth. And the more the disease, the less we're going to be together. So let's remove the impurities and let the bonds of the gold heart come together, inshallah. So that's the objective of this, inshallah ta'ala. So jazakallah khair for sharing this.
Thank you so much, Brother Rehan. This is a practical application of what you just said. MashaAllah. Any suggestions, ideas, reflections, about how we can keep the spirit of Ramadan? Because we'll learn from each other. So, Daddy, you have any suggestion? I'm going to put you in a spot. I'm sorry. Any suggestions? Yes. When you pray Asr? Mm-hmm. You can pray Asr. If you miss the Asr, you have to pray Asr. Asr is an obligatory prayer. You have to pray it before Maghrib. At that time, it's not prohibited. It's only prohibited to pray Nafil. But to catch the Asr, yes. Also Fajr. Whenever you wake up, you pray Fajr, regardless of what time it is. No, that's for voluntary prayers. But for the Fajr prayer, you pray, the minute you wake up, you pray immediately. Regardless where the sun is. That's for voluntary prayers. Any other questions? Yes. Yes. Yeah, the brother suggesting a Sira halaqa. There's a Sira class actually in the certificate program. Take that. But I think also we're thinking about once a month to do a Sira. Inshallah, we'll go and work on that. Inshallah. Yeah. Inshallah. Yes. Inshallah. There are questions? Suggestions? Huh? Yeah, that's going to be institutionalized that. Qiyam once a month. Inshallah. Yes. Yeah, we will also do 2 weeks Quran reflection on Friday and 2 weeks hadith. 40 hadith. It's going to split it. 2 weeks, 2 weeks. First 2 weeks Quran, the first other 2 weeks is by hadith. This class. Inshallah. Any other suggestions? Sisters? Yes. In Turkey and we try to do this once, but sometimes the Qur'an, they don't come regularly. And it create, all the relationships are based on expectations. And if we were expecting it, they don't see it, they get disappointed. Maybe you can, try to have it maybe twice a month to start with that. Certain people heard. But also we do a Quran night at this masjid. We bring different recitals of Quran and then we do reflections. Quranic night. Inshallah we'll do a Quranic night. Continue to go Quranic night. Any other suggestions? Okay. Yes. Was that? Yes. I didn't hear you. Yeah, sister, you asked a class for a question called lecture. Were you here when I talk about spiritual memory? Spiritual memory. To soften your heart is to recreate those moments. Try to remember the night of 27th. Try to remember the dua of Khatm al-Quran. And then you establish a habit. 5 verses a day, 5 verses a week. And when you do that, you try to filter the noise and concentrate. Our heart get hardened by 3 things. 1, bad company. Number 2, consistence and insisting on a sin. The 3rd is that we do not remember the vulnerable. Imam Ghazali said, when you see the orphan, your heart gets softened. When you see animals and birds, you get how softened. Seriously, nature. And with contemplation, soften our heart. Time of Maghrib, is it? 5 minutes. If no other questions, you can have it ready for Maghrib. That's a very good question, young lady. How to say a good Muslim wife? Or fitna? You're talking about public school? I was telling my brother, I was visiting my brother in Malaysia. And my brother, first time, him and his family living in the country other than Sudan. And I was telling him that I am so grateful for American Muslim who grew up in America, especially in public school, in environment where there's not many Muslims around them. For example, this Ramadan happened during the school or the school was off? During the school. And therefore, when you fast in public school, what do you do? Lunchtime. You go to the library. Let me tell you something. That spirit of Ramadan that make you not to eat, and you go to the library, and you resist the temptation, you could have eaten that food. That shows that you have a strong will within you. Irada, called irada in Arabic, strong will. What you do, you cultivate that. Cultivate. That by reminding yourself, I have a control. I have the spirit of controlling myself. Second, have a good friend that remind you of Allah and help you to stay strong. The third, keep your salah intact. Salah will protect you from doing the wrong thing. Inshallah. Very good question. I'm very inspired, by the way. Young people ask those questions. It renew my energy. طيب سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك لا إله أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala soften our heart. May Allah guide us in our life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the wisdom and ability to sustain our faith and our iman and the spirit of Ramadan. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us love each other for His sake, purify our heart from envies, hatred, jealousy, grudge, and fill us with light. Ameen. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم.